So
there's something I wanted to say to you earlier, and I forgot what it was going to be now.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Like to start the podcast, or just in general?
Just in general.
Oh,
it was a good. I think it was a stat or a quote or something, but I forgot now.
Maybe I distracted you.
When I was in bed and I forgot to write it down.
Well, if it pops up, let me know. I was going to start this podcast off.
Yep.
With a nice shout out to our boy Seabass. So for anybody listening that doesn't know, Sebastian Gervais was a 12th round pick to Saginaw this year. And for people that follow the OHL or follow the draft, a 12th round pick normally isn't a guy you would consider to be in the running for getting a 16-year-old spot on an OHL team. And Seabass went in there and just had a great camp and ended up signing with Saginaw. So he's there. He's going to play. They signed their first rounder, their second rounder, and their 12th rounder, Seabass. Yeah. So congratulations to him. Want to make sure I give him a shout out and then get your thoughts on that whole situation.
Yeah, so my thoughts are like, I'm not calm about this. It's I mean, I am so happy for him, and there's a lot of reasons I'm happy about this, and there's a lot of lessons to go in this, in what just happened, because when the draft was happening, my voice is loud today, by the way. Oh, okay, that's good. Before the draft, the general manager was asking me and about a certain player that he liked, and I told him that this is someone that he should be taking, and he had other people in mind and stuff. And he goes, I haven't seen a ton of them. I've seen a little bit of them. I haven't seen a ton of them. And I said, okay, I'm going to put my neck on the line here, and I'm going to say this is a player that will make your team. Maybe not this year, because in reality, I wasn't sure if this year he would actually be able to step into the OHL. I'm just being honest.
Yep.
Especially when the draft came, it was like, that's even a few months ago. So he ended up taking him, and I was surprised he lasted that long because he's actually a very, very good player. But the circumstances of the last year and a half, there's a lot of kids that just didn't get seen enough. And I said that if we were to do that draft over after a full season of hockey, there'd be definitely some changes or some different people going higher, lower, whatever. It doesn't really matter. It is what it is.
Yep.
So to say that say he got drafted in the 12th round is maybe not fair, but he got drafted in the 12th round. That's the reality. So anyways, he took him and whatever. He got a 12th round pick. See what happens, right? We'll see what happens. So the funny story was, so this is amazing, man. So first of all, like you said, a 12th rounder making it your first year, that's slim and none when that happens. It's hard enough to make it as a 12th rounder. So anyways,
period. Yeah.
Yeah. So
as a 16-year-old.
Yeah. Now I'm also speaking, that in a sense that Sebastian is like almost like my own kid. In fact, his dad gave him up to me. It was a really good story. His dad went to the cottage this summer, and they bought a beautiful cottage. And Seabass told his dad that, especially since he got drafted, he goes, I don't want to go to the cottage. I want to train. And his dad even said in our office the other day, he was upset with him. It pissed him off. He goes, I bought this cottage and you need to relax. And Seabass says, no, I want to train. I don't want to miss one skate, one workout. And within the families, like my wife and the wives, they were trying to, construct a way to get the kids up there.
Manipulate the boys.
Manipulate the boys to get up there, even if it's just for 2 days.
Yeah.
But all three of the boys, Liam as well,
yeah,
they worked out every day. They didn't want to miss one skate. And they refused to go to the cottage. And, would it have hurt them to go to a cottage on the weekend? Probably not. But their mindset was so set on making the OHL this year and performing and getting back to hockey. And they missed hockey a lot last year. So I want to play hockey. So his dad was pissed off. And it turns out he gets drafted and signed. So his dad was like, well, that was a great decision.
Yeah,
right?
No kidding.
So anyways, when he was going over, so we were driving to Guelph that day to get Charlie to his camp. And his dad calls me and he goes, can't get across the border to Saginaw. And you can imagine what's going through the dad's head. So his dad's like, okay, he's a 12th round pick. Got to give him a chance, but we can't get across the border in the Windsor-Detroit border. So he and I didn't know this, but he called me from his driveway.
Yeah, went back home.
And his wife Brenda said, well, you got to take him. It's his dream. So I'm so glad he called me too, and he was just fuming. He goes, I can't get across the border. This is bullshit. What am I taking my kid, a 12th round pick, to a camp for 2 days? And we'll be back in 2 days. And I said, listen, as a friend, as a hockey guy, whatever, but more importantly, as a friend, we always encourage our kids to give it everything they got. Sometimes it ain't going to be easy, but you have to believe that if you do everything right, you're going to make it. So I told the dad the same thing. I said, if we're asking our kids to do it, we have to do everything we possibly can to make their dreams come true. So it's worth driving to the next border in Sarnia, Port Huron, and give them the chance. If you get denied there, there's not much you can do. But you have to give it a shot. He goes, yeah, okay, I will. And I don't know if I'm the one that made him do it, but but Brenda, his wife, said, you got to do it. And I encouraged him, like, take him. And if you fail, you went down swinging. Yeah. Right? Yeah. So they got through. So there was issue number one. Got through the border and he went to camp. And of course, can you imagine the state of mind both Dad and Seabass were at the border when he can't go over? You imagine what his head's saying. He's like, I can't even go to this thing. It's my dream. So anyways, he got through. So he got there and called the next. I called the next day to see how they were doing, and apparently pretty good. Like, he looks pretty good. But yeah, day one, like, who knows? Like, and I know for a fact Andre's head was, but like, we're here. Well, he used the yesterday. He used the analogy that he thought he was dropping his kid off, like taking him to the Cedar Point or Canada's Wonderland for a ride for a couple of days, and then they said, "Well, we're keeping your kid.
We're here.
You can go home.
We're here for the experience. Just for a couple of days to check it out. Yeah, we're out of here.
And that would, if that was your headspace,
totally
that's
reasonable.
Fine. Yeah. So, anyways, after the second or third day, the general manager who I spoke to before called me and said, I think we're going to keep him. Like, does he have an agent? Does he have this, that? And I said, I can take care of my end. And I just didn't want him to get sucker, like Andre and Seabass get sucker punched and say, okay, you're staying here. So I gave Andre the heads up that they really, really, really like him. And he's like, what? He goes, he is playing really well. And I said, no, they really like him. Like, I think you're going to have to make some decisions. And then later that day, they pulled him in and they said, we're signing you. You're staying here. So that was like an experience in itself. So, he called me and Seabass called and we're all, Charlie and everything, everybody knew about it. And it was phenomenal. But so the first thing was your 12th round pick. Second thing is you can't cross the border. Third thing is you go there and you have a great camp and played so well that you made the team. And then he got to play an exhibition game, which I was able to watch on TV. And he played great. He played great, man. Yep. Like, actually good. And he does all the things. See, the thing that he does really, really well is obviously he's a good player. But like I said to the GM and to his dad, I said the things that he does well, a lot of he has in a camp or in the OHL, he doesn't have to get rid of the minor hockey. So a lot of kids, they excel in minor hockey because they can skate through guys and they don't take care of both ends, and the flashy stuff that moms and dads go, oh man, my kid's a good hockey player. He has that, but what he does extremely well is the Patrice Bergeron, where he wins his face-offs. And Charlie always said it. He goes, if he goes to the camp, he's going to sign. But he wins his face-offs. He knows his defensive zone. He's very, very responsible. He makes good passes. He's got speed.
Good stick.
Like, he interrupts plays, and Charlie just says he's a bastard to play against. Not that he's like totally physical, but it's just he's a pain in the ass to play against. Yeah. So all those little things when you're picking an OHL team are the things that you can rely on later. Yeah. So to have it to go back, I am so happy for this guy because he worked so hard. Mm-hmm. He worked his ass off in the gym. He ate right, he slept right, and he trained hard with my son. Yeah. And with Liam. And Liam the same thing. Like and several guys, but like those three were in it together. And they were awesome. And so what I said to the general manager was, he said, well, like, you made me look good. And I said, well, it's a credit to the kid, but I said, when he's walking in there, like guys are walking in as a GM, I said, let's be honest. You're not sitting there going, okay, our 12th rounds, I can't wait to see him play. You're probably most likely saying, okay, have a good camp, like sincerely. You're going to keep an eye on them, but not expecting what they got. Yeah. So when we tell people that no matter what round you're drafted in, you have a chance. Mm-hmm. And if you look at a 12th round, well, you don't. You don't have a chance. You don't really, but you did.
Unless you do. Yeah.
Yeah. So I've seen it not several times. I've seen late picks get drafted because of the hard work and stuff. And they show up to camp ready to go. But the reality is that was a very slim chance of that
Mhm.
happening, and he did it.
Yep.
And like I can't even explain how proud I am. Like I'm able to keep my emotions in, but it means so much to me. And what's great about it is, you hear people talk to you all the time as a player. Like, it doesn't matter where you get drafted, do the work. If you have a good camp, you get a chance. And sometimes you say that, and you deep down you're thinking, but you're probably not going to make it. But
Mhm.
it was just a beautiful, and that's what the GM said. He goes, I'm actually speechless on how good this player is. And the coach came in after the first meetings and said, that's who I want on my team. And they all agreed, like, yeah, he's good. Like, he
Yeah.
can play. And the coach also said that he has no idea how good he's going to be.
Yeah.
But the coach wants him on that team. So that means if the coach wants you, that's a really good step in the right direction, because he didn't draft him. He's just a kid that I like that kid. So I don't know if I went all over the place, but
You
wow.
did, but it all makes sense.
Does it all make
Oh
sense?
yeah.
But it's like just so phenomenal, because you're expecting your fourth rounder, fifth rounder to be in the mix.
Yeah.
But not your 12th. Maybe in a year or two if they work hard.
Yep.
So-
I'm gonna do a brain dump on this now too,
Okay.
and hopefully he doesn't, because I'm gonna get a little personal about like the
Yeah.
story. So hopefully I don't think he would mind, but
It's okay.
just to give like some more context to like where this kid's coming from. So see, I'm in the same position as you, where like I could not be happy. Like I've been telling everyone I know about this story, because I'm so proud of this kid. Like, and it actually, you've known him longer and been working with him longer than I have, but through the summer, because we've gotten so tight and he's been so committed to what he wants to do and all that kind of stuff. And the difference between a kid like Seabass and a kid like Charlie is Charlie by default got to be in this environment all the time.
Yeah.
Right. So Seabass is coming from a different kind of setup where he was a kid that was more like me, which is probably why I feel for him so much, because he doesn't have like a hockey setup that he just gets to live in every day. He doesn't get to show up and skate the whole day whenever he wants. Like, he's got to pay for stuff. His parents have to pay for things,
Right.
and he's got to scrape and get himself in there. He's not related to a guy that plays somewhere. He doesn't have a hockey name. Like, he's got a couple uncles or whatever that do some stuff with hockey, but nothing like super serious. So he was a kid that came from nothing to do with hockey, basically, and found his way into the opportunity that he has. So he missed his draft year, didn't get to play, and then which is shit sandwich number one, like all the kids. Then he got drafted late, which I know he still got drafted, but for him was probably a little bit disappointing. He had hoped he was going to go higher. I know that. Then he went to his first junior camp just a week and a half before, and he's trying out for a junior B team.
That's right.
And absolutely deserved to make this team.
Yeah.
But in junior B, you can only have two 16-year-olds. So he got cut. And he was like devastated, like absolute devastation, on the edge of the cliff after this. And then not even a week and a half later, he's on the opposite end of the spectrum, couldn't be happier, and signing in the OHL.
Yeah.
And, I called him on Sunday. It was the first time I got a chance to talk to him, because his life was just like, what the hell is going on? Because it was so unexpected for him. And I was just saying, and this is kind of the lesson that, the reason I love this story so much is because of the lesson that so many of these kids can pull out of it. Whether you're an early pick or a late pick or not picked, it's not about, this is exactly what I said to him. Like, you see how it's not about what is happening to you today. It's about the process over time, right? So I told him, like, a week and a half ago, you were in deep depression because of how devastating getting cut was from junior B.
And thought he was going to go play major midget.
Right. Thought he was going to go play major midget, and it was like super disappointing. And he was really upset about it and was swallowing that shit sandwich. And then, not literally a week and a half later, 2 weeks later, he's signing in the OHL. And he's the hottest thing since sliced bread, man.
Yeah.
At that camp.
Yeah.
And it's like, I was saying, like, you see, like, you can't get too low, you can't get too high. When you get dealt shit, you just keep working. When you get the best thing ever, just keep working, because the next shit part is going to come,
Yeah.
And it's a roller coaster. So as long as over time you're riding up, your trend is upwards.
Yeah.
That's what can happen. And it's just the perfect, like, it couldn't be a more perfect example of the shit that we preach all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. And these kids that, whether they got drafted late, didn't get drafted, got drafted early, it's the same pattern, man.
Yeah.
It's the same pattern. And he was so committed to doing what he needed to do through the summer. Like you said at the start, they didn't want to go to the cottage. At the end of the summer, they went up to
Grand
whatever
Bend.
Grand Bend for one day.
Yeah.
And the three of them, Charlie, Liam, and Jerv, were like nervous about missing their Friday hill
Yeah.
workout
Yeah.
to the point where your wife called me.
Yeah.
To say like, hey, can you tell the guys it's okay that they miss a workout so that we can go to Grand Bend? And I was like, that's amazing. Like, better to default to that than default the other way where it's okay 100%. To miss, you know? So it's just a beautiful story, a beautiful example. And I could talk about it for the next 3 hours, like how proud I am of this kid. It's unbelievable to watch, and he deserves every single second of everything he gets because he worked his ass off, man.
Yeah.
He did not miss one thing.
Well, in a short little while, we're going to be able to talk about one of our other customers who's going to be playing in the OHL. It's just a numbers game right now, but he will be up there, and it's kind of the same story. And I can't wait to tell his story a little bit because
me too.
He worked hard this summer, both here and had his own little job, and I was very proud of him because there's another one that went in to the camp, and remember his dad saying to me, and another person was saying to me like they're still around, but like the team's kind of set. Like there's no depth. There's too much depth. Like, how are they going to make it? So I just said, like, with no certainty whatsoever, I said, number one, I can't give you the real feedback on what coaches are thinking because they're looking for certain things. So I don't know what they're exactly looking for that team.
Yep.
But I said, like, the thing with the OHL is that you're here to take a job or you're here to lose a job. And if you go if you're here and you take someone's job, you'll take it. And what that means is that they might have to make a trade. They might have to cut someone that's been there before, and that's just the way it is. It's not you're not there. Your position is not cemented in for life or for the 4 years that you can belong to that team. So if you go and perform, you can take a job. So I said, just keep the work boots on and just keep doing what you're doing because you're still here.
Yeah.
So anyways, there's going to be a great opportunity, but there's a thing that I always say to the kids. And I was thinking about it last night because I was kind of comparing, on Charlie's team with Guelph Storm, the first rounder is just so good, and Charlie he's good, and they were signed before they even had to try out because of what the team needed or however you want to say it. So what I say to people is that when you go to whatever camp you're going to or whatever team or whatever opportunity you have, sometimes you walk in and there's it might not look like the door's open, but there's a little crack in the door, right? Maybe there's even the shackle, or what do you call it? The lock on the hotel doors where the chain's there and you can't open it. You just say, I can't get in. But if it's open that little bit of a crack, you can get in.
The water gets in, man.
You have to figure out how to do it. And so other kids like Cam in Guelph and my son, they were already signing stuff. And when they went through the door, someone said, "Oh, did you see the door?" And they're like, "What door are you talking about?" Because they didn't even see it. And they go, "It's like 6 feet behind." And they're like, "Oh yeah, there's a door there." Yeah, they didn't have to push through. They didn't have to work through it. They didn't have to grind through it. They did the work before, right? They did a lot of work before to get them to this point, and they were just happened to be maybe talented enough or mature enough, or they've done enough to say, no, these kids are ready to go.
Yep.
But these other kids have to bust through that door. When you bust through that door, I mean, you could just do it.
Yep.
But you have to be willing to, like that chain might be on the door. It might not just be a push. You might have to kick it and 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 kick it.
Yeah.
But you're going to get through that door, and that determination of getting through that door gives you the opportunity.
Yeah.
And it was neat. And so these kids, that's what these kids did, and it's great. Now, so the other side of this is, we always say it doesn't matter what round you're drafted in. So it really doesn't now. Like when you so now that I'm after playing and coaching and all that stuff, looking at it from a dad's point of view now, it's like a whole different vantage point. And I look and I go, so my son was drafted early and everything was nice and good and all that kind of stuff. And he's got a spot. Hopefully he still keeps his spot. But you watch other people coming in and you go, so Sebastian, for example, now he's a 12th rounder going in the dressing room and on the bus and on the ice and all that stuff. No one says, "Oh, that's 12th round. That's the first round playing against a 12th round."
Yeah.
Now he's just on the Saginaw Spirit, and the round is totally irrelevant because he did what he was sought out to do, and now he can outplay.
Even playing field, man.
He can outplay number one.
Yep.
That's a very doable thing, and maybe he doesn't have the and I don't know, but maybe he doesn't have the natural gift of goal scoring
The
and
high-end
slickness and
skill,
the high
yeah.
end skill and all that stuff. But maybe there's something else there that gives him more ice, or maybe he works hard and he gets it.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that 12th round, 8th round, first round, second round doesn't make a difference now. Now you have to perform. And I've just watched people get signed over the last week or so, and guys are doing that. They're going there with something to prove.
Yeah, totally. And like I got a couple things on just what you were talking about. You're saying, how where you get drafted doesn't matter, and I know people would push back on that, saying like where you get it matters in the sense you get, like you said, the door's already open for you the earlier you go, right? So it takes less work to get an opportunity if you get drafted higher. So it matters in that sense. But like you said, there's an opportunity still, whether it's more or less, for everybody there.
Kind of goes both ways, though.
Yep.
And I can say this just watching several camps, but especially watching my son's camp, is you look at, by default, you go, oh, that's the first rounder, second, third, fourth, fifth. And, and sometimes
More
you look
expectation.
at, there's days where I was looking at my son, or moments where I was looking at my son going, I don't like that, because your expectations are higher.
Yep.
And whereas you see a kid that's drafted later that wasn't supposed to do anything, score a goal and hit somebody and do a couple good things, and it's like, oh, there's something there too.
Yeah.
So it does work both ways.
Absolutely. I was just throwing the because that's what people are going to say. Well, of course it matters if you go higher and whatever. And like, yes and no, right?
Yes and no.
And that's
matters
the
for
right
a
answer.
moment.
And then the other caveat I was going to throw on, you're talking about, guys pushing the door open, and this is the thing that I think people need to understand about a kid like Seabass, or these guys that are starting to get opportunities when maybe they shouldn't, or by the numbers it's not likely that they would, is that these guys did the freaking work, man. Whether you're a first rounder or a 9th rounder or a 12th rounder or whatever, if you don't do the work, it's going to catch up with you, right? So even if you're that first round guy, because this happens all the time, like when we went through the 2013 draft in one of the early episodes, there was a handful of guys that went on to have a pro career that was noteworthy in the whole draft, and they weren't all first rounders.
That's right.
So the thing you have to understand is it doesn't matter where you get drafted, as long as you're still putting the work in, you're still putting the time in, and you're having, especially in your teenage years where you can really grow and take strides to get better and get stronger and get faster and all those things, and working on your skills and making sure that you're up to par, up to that baseline we always talk about when you go to camp, then you can separate yourself. Because for Seabass, like, what a freaking good example, man. Like, did not miss a skate, did not miss a training session, always asking questions about how to get better, asking questions about diet. How do I keep weight on? I feel like I'm going to start losing weight because I'm skating so much. What can I do? Sleeping properly, reading books, like all the time. Yeah. And so he's behaving like a professional. Like, he's behaving the way he needs to behave to keep progressing, to move forward. Now, if he stops, if he gets comfortable and then next summer he comes back and isn't doing that, then he's going to fall off real quick. Just like the rest of the guys that play in the OHL for their first year or whatever,
Yeah.
So that's the caveat that you have to understand, is it's not just, well, you're an 8th round pick and you have a chance. It's like, no, you have a chance if you keep working to earn your spot.
That's right.
To earn the opportunity. Like, that is the important part of what we're talking about here. Because if Seabass doesn't do that as the 12th rounder, he is exactly what you would expect. He goes there 12th rounder, not expecting much.
Not bad.
There for the experience. Not bad, not good, but he's not going to make our team. He's not up to par to play in this league.
Yeah.
But instead of that, he said, I'm a 12th round pick, but I'm going to spend 4 months absolutely working to get better. And we saw it, man. The amount of progress that this guy had just from like the 4 or 5 months ago when we were skating in during the lockdown in Tilbury or whatever. It's like, it's immeasurable.
Here's the thing, though. It was it is the summer before his major Bantam year. He really came up to me and said, like, I really, really want to get this. Like, I really want to be better at hockey. In a kid's words, that's what he kind of said.
Yeah.
And I can say this, that every time we skated, he was there. Like, he was at every one that he could possibly attend. And when he came to work. And every single skate, would come up to me before I got off the ice, and he would say, well, what do I need to get better at? Every time after he picked up the pucks, because he always did that. And when I would go set up a drill or something, he'd move pylons and stuff. He's a leader. He's going to be a captain of that team one day. every single time he would say, "What do I need to get better at?" And I would give him something. And there was things that, you know, I had to stay on. Like one of the things, like was when he would do tight turns. I found he uses too much edge, and he couldn't be tight enough. So it was like, I don't need to explain the whole thing, but it wasn't. Couldn't separate himself very much, and he couldn't make it tight enough. So it was like kind of almost irrelevant, and he looked a little clumsy. So I gave him, that was one thing. Another thing that first summer was his shooting, like how to tighten up the shooting in stride, keep the puck tighter with him and stuff like that. That was another thing. Worked his hands a little bit and stuff like that, and then positionally some stuff. But the reason I'm saying that is because you don't just work hard and it happens. So he spent that summer, the hockey season, the next summer, which was the COVID one, all COVID winter working out and honing his skills whenever we could throughout, right up until training camp. So essentially, he went maybe 2.5 years of really, really working hard. So my point is that he just didn't get better all of a sudden. And what I want people to understand is the mindset of this. Because I said it to Seabass yesterday before he left, when he came to say, when he stopped in here for the day to get his stuff, his underwear and stuff, so he can go move again.
Yeah.
I said, well, I didn't say this part. The point I'm making is that there's little wins within that big win. The little win was number one, that he made a decision. And once you decide to, like, you could say, I could try to lose 5 pounds. If you try to lose 5 pounds, you're not losing 5 pounds. You're going to lose 5 pounds, and you're going to find a way to do it, and you're going to do it. No matter what it takes, you're going to do it. If you make that decision, you're going to do it. So he made a decision, and maybe it was an immature decision, but he vocalized it, and he said it to me that I want to be a better hockey player. So that was one win. He made a decision. The second win is that he showed up every day. He showed up every single time with me. He showed up every single time in the workouts here. And that's a win number 2. The win number 3 with all that is that he showed up to get better with intention, with purpose. So those are 3 huge wins right there. Mm-hmm. The next thing is that the next win is that you can, maybe you didn't recognize it, but when you actually do something and you improve on something, it's another notch in your belt, it's another win, where mentally you say, okay, I did that. So he's seen himself get a whole bunch of wins and realize that it amounts to something. And that, so the point that I told him yesterday was, do you see what you've accomplished? You've done the impossible. Like, it's not impossible, but you've basically done the impossible. You've done something where you're not supposed to be the guy that they sign, and you signed. So remember that as you're moving forward, that you can actually do anything that you choose to do. So there's not a mountain out there that's too big. You just have to chip away at it, one step at a time, right? It might take 3 years, but you know how to do this. You know how to conquer skills that you're not good at, situations that you were average. I mean, to be very honest with you, he was second fiddle to Charlie and maybe another person or two on our team.
Well, that's another point I was going to make. I forgot about that. It's like always in Charlie's shadow, playing. Yeah. Anytime they were doing anything. 100%. Right? That's another shit 100%. Sandwich. Yeah.
And they happened to be best friends.
Yep.
So it was never rubbed in his face or anything, but he's always had to, you know, like even the draft, he came over the next day and he was so happy for Charlie, and he saw Charlie getting all this press, and he saw Charlie getting, you know, his all his gear the next couple of days, and shirts and hats. And he waited like a month and a half to get his hat and jersey when the general manager stopped in. He was like, I wonder if I'm even going to get a hat.
Yeah.
You know, and he's watching my son with brand new skates with his number and his name on it, and all his gear and t-shirts and hoodies, and like he's been treated like God, his school package, all this kind of stuff. And you know, but he watched that, and he had a, you know, but on the other side, as a friend, he was really, and his dad told me this too. He goes, he's so pumped up. He goes, because he's watching how Charlie's getting treated, and he wants that. So subconsciously, he was sitting there, I'm going to get that. But anyways, it's the bottom line is he won on a daily basis.
Yeah. And
it's the old saying, right? How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time.
Yeah.
And that's what he did, day after day, one bite. And next thing you know, she's gone, and he's ready.
You were saying how, you know, he had a bunch of little wins leading up to this, and I forget who the saying was from. I think it was like a Tony Robbins thing or whatever. And he's talking about how like no big accomplishment comes by accident. You
Yeah.
know, people only notice the big accomplishment, but there's all kinds of things you do up to that accomplishment that nobody looks at, and that you might not even notice. So for Seabass, I know for a fact this was the case. Like he did not notice each step he was taking along the way until now, when he can look back and realize, oh shit, like all this stuff I did. Oh yeah, like I remember I got better. Like this day, I remember that this thing happened where I realized I was getting better. And this day, and he doesn't necessarily realize it or see it in his own mind that he did those things until he gets the big accomplishment.
Yeah.
Because nobody keeps track of the little accomplishments.
Well, dude, I remember the day. I honestly, I remember the day because you used to have like an okay shot, but in my world, I'd consider it a muffin.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the day. It was not the exact. It wasn't like March 13th, but it was. But it was between January and February this year. Yeah, January and February this year, where his muffin turned into a hockey player's shot.
Yeah.
I remember it. All of a sudden, one day I went, Seabass. I said, good rip. And you think something I said earlier, one of the skills we had to work on was getting a shot up to snuff. And he would try, and I would, I'm not coaching him 24/7 on it, but it's like quicker.
Right.
You're showing too much. You have to hide it. Have to keep your feet moving.
Yeah.
Don't pull it back your heels. I've said that to him over the last 2.5 years, 300 times, and just said, hey, remember here, right here.
Mm-hmm.
Strength is here. Quickness is here. And I remember the day where it went like that.
Yeah.
And then it went from that day on, he's been shooting like a junior hockey player.
Right. And he probably went home after that and was like, oh, like, yeah, and Coach Andy gave me a nice compliment today.
Yeah.
Not thinking like, I just made a huge step to getting better.
Right.
Like he didn't think that. There's no chance.
Right.
So, but now, because he was going over camp with me when we were talking on the phone on the weekend, and he was saying that he started to really get some confidence after fitness testing because he did above average in everything and better than the 05s in almost everything. And then he came like 1-2 in the 2-mile run and was like lapping guys like by a mile.
Yeah.
He was leading.
Yeah.
And he's like, he started to get some confidence. And maybe in that moment, he starts to realize, okay, like I've actually gotten a lot better and faster and stronger, and I'm feeling pretty good about myself.
Yeah.
But you don't realize those small things. Like I could lay out 100 things through the last 4 months that Seabass and a bunch of the guys, not just Seabass, but that they actually improved on that they probably don't even realize was like a huge improvement. Whether it was like the speed, like one of the easy ones I remember in here was we would always do sprint starts as part of our warm up.
Yeah.
And that was something for Charlie. That was one of his most improved things this summer. For Seabass as well, like starting in these weird athletic postures they're not used to, and how they progress through the summer. And that's like a huge improvement. And that's not something that they would tally as a big win, right? It's a little win.
Yeah.
And this is, it goes to your point. Like there's little things, little wins they were getting all along the way that just manifest now in this big accomplishment. But he was still, for Seabass, getting shit after shit every week for the whole summer, whether it was drafted late, can't come to skate because it's locked down now, or whatever it was, cut from junior B, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
He was still getting hits, still taking hits until boom, now you get it. Yeah. So you had 100 little wins that you didn't realize because you're putting in the work. And that is the amazing thing about if you just come to work, man, and you just pay attention. And my other point that I was going to make on that, sorry, is the way that he was training, he had a brain about it. He didn't just come in and was just working hard, right? Because we talk about that too. It's one thing that for you to be able to work hard. It's another thing for you to be able to work hard and work smart.
Yeah.
And Seabass was a guy that was working smart. He was asking questions, trying to improve. Because I got a couple guys I'm thinking of right now that work really hard and just mash potatoes between the eyes. And
they didn't understand why they were doing it. Didn't ask why. They just did.
Right. And they show up and they work hard, and that's fine. But they're never going to get better the way Seabass is getting better because he's actually being a scientist about it. He's actually, whether he thinks that that's what he's doing or not, he's analyzing, he's problem solving, he's trying to figure out, okay, I'm weak at this, I need to get better at this. I'm weak at this, I need to get better at this. I'm strong in this area, don't need as much attention on this.
Yeah.
You know? And this is the exact process we always preach. He did the exact process that we always talk about.
Yeah.
And if for the kids that are listening to this or parents that are listening to this, that is what the process is. Like you stay committed to what you're doing, you work hard, and then you be smart, like you be intelligent. Where are you training? Who's training you? Is it something that's actually good for you? Are you going to achieve your goals following this method? And like he did all that. He did it all to a T.
Yeah.
And he still got nothing, zero for it until boom, right now.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, man. It's just an amazing story.
Yeah. Well, I had that conversation with Charlie, and I think Seabass too, but Charlie for sure, because I remember when COVID first hit, and that's when Charlie started working out with me. And he wasn't at the point where he loved working out yet, because he was still 14 years old. He was just like a kind of a new 14-year-old. But he's always done the exercise in here so his body could move the right way. When you and I and Dalton sat there and put the program together, we know what I know, and you know, but I know, like, from the hockey world, what guys are willing to do to work out. I know what they're willing to do and what they're willing to sacrifice and what they're willing to miss. And once we, especially when we were trying to make it, we used Dalton's brain a lot as a hockey player to design this, and it was hard, but it was functional and it was right. And these kids, I knew my son going to camp and Jerv and any of the kids that worked here, they were going to be in the top of the top. I knew that. 100% I knew that. But I don't think they, like, to your point with Seabass, I don't think he knew how far ahead. Because I know, because, like, this goes back to hockey training period or business period. There's a lot of people, okay, so hockey training, there's a lot of people that run skates. And they don't care. They want $40 or $50 or $20 and give me my money, and I'm going to do a skate that looks like I'm doing something. Does that sound like I'm a jerk? I don't care. It's the truth. Is it actually making you a better hockey player? Like, that's the question you have to ask. And do they actually sit there and at night and go, okay, how do I want to work on this? I got to figure it out. Or do they just go to YouTube and, oh, there's a drill that looks good? Most of it is that. How many gyms are they walking into where it's called a hockey gym or a sports specific gym or whatever, but it's not. It's everyone's doing the same
Here's
thing,
your workout. Yeah.
which is fine. It's the same thing because you can't write. If you have 60 kids working out with you, you have a good program. You have 60 different programs to a T, but it's got to make sense. And I know a lot of these places go, okay, do that, and they don't really pay attention to where you're on them on every little thing. Oh, no. You need to take 25 pounds off of that because your heels are coming up and you're not doing it properly. We need to fix that so you can move properly. And the kids go, yeah, but, and you go, yeah, but dabba do. Do what I say, because you're going to hurt yourself or you're not going to get the point of this. Yeah. And on the other side, you'll go up to someone and say, that's way too easy for you. You need to do it a slower tempo and add weight to get the benefits, and the results go up. The cardio and the conditioning piece, you were all over them. So I knew, and you knew. Well, I think you were waiting for your results.
I was waiting to see. Yeah, I needed to see some results.
I knew without a question of a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt, that these guys are going to go kill it, because I had Dalton and Zach in here working out as well, and they like, if anyone on earth can even remotely come close to Dalton's capacity and strength and movement, they're going to be fine. And all our kids were pushing his
on the path
of pushing Dalton Prout.
Yeah.
So when they go in there and the confidence is there, and it was actually one of the things I was thinking about with my son. Well, maybe I'll go to that in a bit. Yeah. I'll let you finish your side.
Well, I was going to say about the care factor. It is, in my opinion, like, if you have some kind of knowledge about whatever it is you're teaching, obviously given that, like we talk about with hockey, like there's a baseline of knowledge that you need to have. So as a trainer or as a skills coach or as a teacher or whatever, you need to be up to par with a certain level of knowledge that you have. But beyond that, what makes the difference is the amount of give a shit that you have.
Yeah.
You know, and I could not be more a believer in that. And that's from my experience, from what I've been through, from what I know, because I was taught almost everything you could imagine the wrong way while I was coming through hockey. Yeah. And you can see over that period of time that they're progressing, that they're getting better, they're feeling better, they're getting more confident, they're asking the right questions, they're using their brain, and that can only lead to something better. Yeah. Like down the road. There's no room for error on that. So that was the really promising thing that I was noticing at the start. Is the question that I had in my head was, like, did I format this stuff properly? That's what I wasn't sure of. But I knew for a fact there was no other kids that were doing workouts that were like this tailored to what we came up with as what they need, as designed by like an NHL player. That was the first thing. And then nobody was doing the work that they were doing, and nobody had me up their ass the way I was up their ass the whole time, you know? And I was forcing them. And some kids are more compliant than other kids, which can be a problem. And that's why some kids get better and some kids don't.
Yeah.
But for a kid like Seabass, Charlie, whatever, I was forcing them to think about what they were doing while they were doing it. So it wasn't just like some days they would come up to me and they would ask me like, should I try, like, can I put another plate on that to try the deadlift out?
Yeah.
And their set before looked good or whatever. So I wouldn't just say, yeah, put another plate on. I would say, well, like, how are you feeling? Like, what do you think? Do you think you got it? Or like, did you feel comfortable lifting the last one? Like those kind of things, to make them actually understand that it's not about, you know, keep what's important, you know, and for their progress on the ice, what's important is you're moving the right way. The quality is high quality. You're trying to push against the most amount of resistance you can, but with the quality part. The quality piece is actually really important. You know, so whether we were doing sprints or we were doing lifts or whatever, I was also forcing them to use their brain, which is the amazing thing about like the combination of things we have going on in here and just this environment in general is that they're getting their sport specific training or whatever.
Yeah.
They're getting a bunch of people that actually give a shit about their progress, which is arguably the most important when you're going to a trainer for anything. But then they're also getting that self-development part where we force them to actually use their brain.
Yeah.
It's not just here, go do this. Like, here, listen to me because this is what I said. It's like, actually, no, you're the one that's responsible for your own success doing what you're doing. So you need to like have a brain about what you're doing, because you're going to walk out that door and then we're not with you anymore.
That's right.
You know, and I think that is probably the most valuable thing that I've seen, especially in like the top tier guys that we were training for this summer.
Yeah.
A lot of them got a lot of that where like they walk out and it's like, I have to think, like I need to know what I'm doing, you know?
Yeah. And we've used Charlie and Seabass a lot in this episode, and only because they've signed and they're like brothers. But there's also, I'm not going to name names because I just don't want to, but we have another handful of kids that just came back from their OHL camps that had a lot of success with a lot of positive things, like basically saying, we can't wait to have you next year, which is good because honestly, and I mean this sincerely, I really don't know how many 16-year-olds are ready to play in the OHL. I can't say that there's.
Well, most
I don't know if it's the best route for most kids, anyways, including my own.
Yeah.
Like truly.
Well, you can just see it in the league too. Like most kids are not ready. They're not.
Right. But there's a learning process that goes into it, which
maturity.
Is fine. Like, yeah. So, so the reality is that if you got sent back to junior B or tier 2 junior A or major midget to go marinate for a year with the right attitude and the right intentions, it's better for you for a lot of kids, for most kids, I would say. And I'll get into that kind of piece in a second. Another side note that I want you to know that really stuck with me. Of course, I've been a very active dad as far as being positive. I don't know, positive is not the right word. Being, I guess, more role model to my son, having conversations about, the mental side of things, and not like we sit down and go, mentally, you need to do this, but just always, what do you think and what are you doing? Why do you do this? Why? So my son's always been aware. He's grown up in this culture, right? That's what we were saying before. His advantage. He's had you. He's had Dalton. He's had Zach. He's had Ekblad. You go through the wall. He's had people that are in his corner that are cheering for him and could always. Bobby Jones call every day. He assistant coach with Ottawa. How's Charlie doing? Like this is what's in his corner. We have these other kids that don't necessarily have that, so that's we kind of try to be that for them. Anyways, he's there in the OHL now, but he's trying to make the NHL. So he gets it, but without you and without Dalton and without Jonesy and without myself, he doesn't have the attitude. It's easy to go sideways. Yep. So it was really impressive to see, and going to bed at decent times. It looks like, even though we have the whoop, that not going to lie to us, he's getting his rest, and it seems like he's dialed in. So it's good, but there's a lot to it.
Well, and now comes the next step here is for, Charlie Seabass or any guys that are moving away, not just them. They are now going to have the opportunity to get out of this mindset because they're no longer here.
Yep.
You know, and that's kind of the next test for them. And then to your point earlier, again, we're talking about Charlie and Seabass a lot because mostly I just wanted to talk about Seabass's story today.
Yeah.
But there is another handful of guys that went to OHL camps and a couple guys that didn't go to OHL camps that I would put right in the same bucket.
Yeah.
And right in this realm, they just didn't have as flashy of an accomplishment to talk about yet.
Yeah.
But they're right there, like knocking on the door to get something good happen to them as well. Yeah. And one thing I would say is with all the guys that we train here, you know, sometimes people ask, well, how many guys are you training? Like, how many guys do you work with, whatever? And if it's like 30, 40 guys or whatever, like that's not the real number to me. The real number to me is the guys that actually come here every day and do it and don't miss and ask questions and train the way these guys train, which is probably 8.
Yeah.
Maybe, you know, and because of that directly is related to, you know, the amount of guys that make the next level, right?
1,000%.
You got a big crop of guys, but really there's only a couple of them
for sure
that are really doing it.
For sure.
They're really doing it seriously.
For sure.
And those are the guys that move up to the next funnel, you know?
Yeah.
And that next funnel comes and then you have to start over now. And like for those guys, they've made their accomplishment and they're at the next step, but it's going to happen again now. Now it starts again. It's like, are you dialed in or are you not? Now there's a whole host of different variables you have to deal with.
Yeah.
And can you do the same thing you just did to make that jump? Can you do it again? And can you do it again? And it's going to happen 2 or 3 more times.
Said that to Charlie over the last year and a bit, over and over again. And then Seabass heard it. Liam, you know, I've asked this all the time, but said, so you've had whatever week you've worked out, you've gone to bed early, you're eating healthy, and you're on the ice a lot. Can you do this every day for the rest of your life? And they're like, yeah. And I keep reminding them that because this could be your job. It's not the worst, right? But it's a commitment.
Yep.
And when they made that decision, all those kids, they really did make the decision that they're doing this, and they I like your line all the time to them is you're not allowed a day off. You're allowed to have a day off if you never take days off.
Yeah. So
like at the end of the summer or like a circumstance comes up, it's not a problem if you do the work all the time to have one day where it's just, no, I'm just going golfing today. But you don't get that week one.
It's exactly.
You don't get that once a week. Yeah. You don't get that even once a month. You have to do the work. And that's how you get the results. And you're 100% right. The committed, like truly committed. Like there's a funny one. Like who's more committed to work at a restaurant, a pig or a chicken? Right?
Yeah.
Chicken gets to lay eggs, the pig's got to die.
Yeah.
Right?
Seriously.
So, but that's what you got to do. You got to commit yourself, right? If you want to go to heaven, you got to die.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So those kids died. They did the work. They did put everything into it.
Yeah.
And the results are much better for every one of them.
Yeah. I'm going to move on to talk about the camps a little bit, but I want to say that saying again because I forgot that I said that to them actually, and that's like such a great saying is you don't get to take days off ever unless you never take days off.
That's right.
Like that is exactly what the rule is, and that if you have that mentality going into your training and you train smart, it's like you're going to be in the best position you can be at least when you're done.
Yeah. Because if you don't take days off, if you take days off, you take them off for different reasons. You don't take it off because you have a funeral, or you don't take it off because your sister has a wedding on the weekend. You take it off because you're tired, or you take it off because you found something better to do or funner, more fun to do, like i.e. golf or whatever, going to Cedar Point or something like that. That's not training, and those catch up to you.
Yeah. Well, and the last thing I want to say about that too is the biggest thing, and this is something that you wouldn't think of necessarily, the kids and the parents. One of the biggest pieces of credit that I'm going to give these guys that were taught, this handful of 5 to 8 guys, is how much they communicated with me and with each other while they were training. Like they were in it, man. Like I never had to remind them about anything. I didn't have to hold their hand. It's like they were always coming to me. Hey, can we switch the workout time today? Hey, I can't make it today. Can I make it up tomorrow?
Right.
Hey, like which days are we doing what this week? Because I want to plan out what I'm doing away from the gym. These are the kind of questions that they were asking me all summer. all summer. And I can't say the same for the guys outside that core group of,
Right.
8 or
I know.
whatever guys. And
I know.
that was the biggest difference maker to me, is that
Yeah.
they were bought in and they were mature enough to make sure that they were on top of their shit as much as they could be for 15 and 16-year-old kids, man.
Yeah, it was impressive.
It's very impressive.
Yeah.
Very impressive. And that is exceptional. It's not, that is the expectation when you train at a place like this, but that is not a normal thing for kids of that age to do. So it was really, really impressive. So I want to give them credit on that.
Yeah.
I want to get your thoughts, because we talked a bit the last episode about just OHL camps in general.
Mm-hmm.
And so now that you saw the mini camp, rookie camp, had a little break to digest that, and then went and saw the main camp, saw a couple preseason games that you watched, and like red-white game scrimmage type stuff. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on from let's say first from the perspective of the young guys coming in, the draft picks coming in, what you thought of skill level, how they progressed, how they got better, how it all kind of flowed out, and then we'll kind of branch off from that.
Yeah. So we talked about last week a little bit about the mini camps. It was good. It was kind of in awe and all that stuff. I thought the mini camps were, and it makes sense, a little sloppier because you don't have your top end guys there.
Yep.
And there's no systems and stuff. So some guys would, it was fine. It was okay. The main camp was a whole different ball game because now you got the older guys there, and so I spoke to a few of the kids that I trained, and they were like, "Whoa, that's like so much." They name a name here and there, and I go, "Yeah, guys, it's not every day is gonna be harder." So this is the easy part, but they were like, "Wow, it's fast." So I had to dial a couple of their heads back and say, "Listen, all the stuff, the building, all the media, all the stuff that's going on doesn't matter. Just worry about what's inside the glass. If you do what you've trained to do inside the glass, you're going to be fine. But the time and the space and the size of some of these guys, yeah, you're going to go, whoa." So you have to remember, most guys on the team, like my wife was trying to figure out, she goes, "Oh, Charlie's like, he's doing well." Yeah, he's doing well, but he was given a role to do as well. So it's different than what he did in minor hockey. And that's what people have to understand, is you're not going to be the same minor hockey player. It's not the way you're going to play in hockey if you get to this level. But his role is going to be a little bit different. But you got to remember that the guy on his line was a second-round pick 2 years ago. Not last year, 2 years ago. The guy on the left side was a pick from 3 years ago. He's going against a defenseman he's playing against a left winger here who is 4 years older, and that was a high pick. So everyone's like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 from the years past. So you're playing against, like, if you thought you were good at whatever age group you are, like, so the 06 is coming in. If you think you're a good player, well, you got to understand that. So some of them skated with Seabass and Charlie, and they think, wow, they're good. They're the same age. Like when you get to camp, they're the same age now. So you're competing with guys 2, 3, 4 years older that were drafted probably higher. So if you think you're a good player, I'm a second-round pick, I'm going to go in there and walk all over guys. No, there's 5 second-round picks there, and they're all older. So it becomes very difficult, and that is a shocker to the kids. That's something I try to preach all the time. I said, you have to be ready and play the right way, because when you get there, it's fast, man.
Yeah.
It's fast. And even from the stands, you can't even tell how fast it is.
Yeah. Well,
it's fast. And that's what they said. The biggest thing, that's all of them to a T said, it's so fast.
Yeah. And O-Dog, when he was here a couple episodes ago, we were talking, and it was one of those things that you don't realize until you experience it. Yeah. Because we can say it.
Yeah.
It's going to be fast, man.
Yeah.
Or one of the biggest beefs I have watching the young guys playing, whether it's a junior camp or whatever, is the decision making is so slow.
Yeah.
And that's because I remember playing like in college, which is faster than in the OHL.
Yeah.
And like smaller rinks, bigger men, like it's fast, hard, like that's what you're used to. And I'm watching some of these guys take 2-3 seconds to make a pass. A second to make a pass is too long, man. Like you need get it, go, it, go.
Well, you'll see it with the forwards coming down, like Charlie. It took him a little bit to realize, I don't have that anymore. Yeah. Like you're coming down, playing on someone, and you go to, and he releases really quick. But he said stuff that he used to be able to do is like when you go to make shift the puck a little bit. If you're doing that with any hesitation, there's a D stick is on it, it's gone. So you have to learn how to make that quicker, and maybe simplify it even. Yeah. Right.
So would you say that's probably the biggest thing that kids need to start to prepare for now is like the decision making?
Yeah. Like, so for tactically, yes, like understand like minor hockey, yeah, it's a whole different ball game. But in minor hockey, a lot of times you get the puck and you can fart around. You can see someone busting up up a seam, and you think about it. You look around and make a play, and maybe even skate around someone and then make it. But at the next level, you have zero time. That's the play that needs to be made. Well, I'll give you one example. Well, I got a couple, but so let's say that the number one thing is decision making has to be quick.
Mhm.
You don't have time to fart around. How do you work on that? Well, I guess the habit is just, I mean, this should be the hockey habit anyways. When there's plays to be made, just make them. And then the only, as Owen said a few weeks ago, is the only way that you actually learn is get into real time. So I don't know if you can really.
Well, I think it's a coaching tip too, though, right? Like especially like guys that are coaching in minor hockey, like that should be a point of emphasis, like in every practice, in every game. Like you see it, you make it. You see it, you make it. Because I think you can drill that. Because one of the things I was thinking of too is when you were talking about that Essex team that were 8 when you were teaching them, and you said one of the things you focus on was they need to be good at moving the puck. They need to be able to move the puck, and not that they're making the fastest decisions ever when they're 8 or whatever, but that's something that can be improved. Like that's something that you can say. Get it, move it. We're not skating it. We're moving it. Get it, move it right away.
Yeah. So for sure. Like, so if I was going to put a coach's hat on now, if a coach is listening, so 100%. Like, you don't let a kid get away with grabbing, like, say a centerman getting an outlet pass, an exit pass, and on a stick, and there's a guy open ahead that needs to get the puck to. You can't let that be. Think about it. That has to happen. So I would drill that in their heads, like move it, move it, move it. See a play, make it. You might make a mistake here and there, but see a play and make it. See a shot, make a shot. Like, don't think, okay, what are my other options? Or is it, like, you see it, you make it, because you don't have time.
Yeah, that was so missing in all my years, even in junior. I never had coaches ever talk about that. Like, see it, make it. And it's like the game just got faster, so you end up climatizing to the speed.
Yeah.
But that was never a teaching point ever, and I don't really know why.
Yeah. The other thing would be, okay, so I'll give you a couple points that I think are very, very important. Is number 2, offensively, is as a kid growing up, take your shots. Take your shots. Like, learn how to get a puck on your stick in traffic and get a shot off without hitting sticks and stuff. And if you can start getting it, so what does that mean? That means, you're going to have to shoot. Sometimes you're going to shoot from bad angles, just a loose puck, and just crack it. Sometimes it means when you're coming in is you got to get that puck in tight and just learn with your feet, move and snap, get them off. Like, that's going to be an art to get off, to do well. And then 2 more things. Back check with a purpose. So on, like, just even in practices and games that don't matter, when you come back to your zone, come back hard. It's not hard to do. Come back hard to the top of the circle hash marks and stop your feet, because it's a habit that's going to have to happen. And it's a good habit that you don't have to learn when you're 16, 17. And stops and starts. I kind of emphasize that on the last point, but those things would be great. Those are things you can do just on a daily basis.
Yeah. Sweet. Then back to the camps kind of now.
Yeah.
Outside of maybe those first year guys, what were some of the things that you were seeing, and maybe like more of the top end players? Like, was there any like big things that stuck out to you about like this kid's maybe not so much on an individual level? Like, what were some of the general things that kind of all the top players sort of had that you noticed?
They have the ability to make plays.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. They have the ability to make plays. They're not. It doesn't seem like, even though a D might be closing a gap real quick, it's not panic. Whereas the younger guys, you see the panic button big time. Yeah. You see the older guys just making nice little plays, just short 5-10 foot passes. Those are the plays that need to be made.
Yeah, I think that
it's not the fancy stuff.
Yeah, I know. I was just gonna say, because one of the things that we always talk about too with passing in particular is the difference between a guy that can make a pass, put it on your tape, and the guy that just misses you by a little bit.
Yeah. And
not misses you in the sense of putting it ahead of you, just like a little bit too far behind, or a little bit in your feet, or whatever. And that's one of those kind of qualities you notice in those top guys, is they just make a good play where something can come from it.
Yeah. The other thing I would say, well, this is maybe not to have to do with camp, but you're going to have to, as a kid, and I said it before, but in minor hockey, you get to play a system, but you don't typically have rules, like actual rules.
Yeah, true.
So Charlie, for example, was drafted as a power forward. I hate doing air quotes, but I just did one. Power forward that can score. Okay, so how do you become a power forward that can score? Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to be physical, or else you're not a power forward. Then you got to just rely on goal scoring, but that's not what they want him to do. So his job as a 16-year-old is to make sure that he finishes hits. Like, he's very, very, very physical. When they played their exhibition game or the preseason game, he was lined up against a draft pick from Chicago, 6'5". Like, my son's a pretty big, strong kid. This guy was 6'5", poised NHL draft pick, and it was shift after shift. That's who he was going against, and it was, this guy can close a gap. The point is that okay, so now that's the minor hockey's gone. That's your job. So he's doesn't have the puck on his stick quite as much yet, because he's really focusing on doing the first part of being a power forward.
Yet. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it is his job. So the coach told me, I do want you to shoot. He goes, you're
to shoot.
Yeah, physical and shoot. He goes, I don't want you worrying so much about making plays.
Possession, yeah. But yeah, he can make plays.
Yeah.
It's not that he can't.
But he goes, I
plays.
want you to be able to get shots. So he's got kind of, and then the D zone that I just explained. So he's got like basically 4 things he's got to do really, really, really well. So the first thing is like to make sure that he's a physical presence. So every time there's someone around, it's got to be body. He's sore. He's got lumps on his chin. He got face planted by the big boy in Mississauga the other night. He's got lumps all over him. And this is a decision now. Like, do I want to do this, or because this is a job now, and he's got to do that well. But what comes with this is, going back to our training, I know he's ready. He's physically strong, man. He's a big, strong kid. But you're dealing with older guys. He's going to do this job and continue to do it. And as he gets more comfortable, like it seems like every time he's on the ice is a little bit more puck time, just a little bit more. So as this evolves into that role, he's going to turn into the player that was drafted. But it's not going to happen in October.
Yeah,
it's going to be a process, and it's going to be a process, just like we talked about with Seabass. It's a win. It's another win. It's another win. Yeah. And then the next thing you know, you're going to start turning into the player that is going to be. So what comes with this is, there might be kids that he definitely would have outscored in minor hockey, and it might be in February, and he might be looking and he might not have a goal. He might have 2 or 3, whereas someone that's his age that he thinks he's better than might have 9 or 10.
Yep. And
that's where it's going to play with your head a little bit. It's like, yeah, but you have to just trust the process. And I told him, I said, your coaches actually, what a great staff they have. One of the coaches is like an assistant to the coaches. Like, he's not there all the time. His name's Corey Locke, and he had 160 some points in junior. Really good, smart player. So he's been teaching them little things. The assistant coach is the associate coach is just phenomenal. And then George is at 30 years. Yeah. So I said, if you just go in there and absorb and listen and just go day by day and get better, you're gonna have a job, man.
Yeah. Well,
you increase your chances.
Yeah, I remember we were talking about. Or you were telling a story about Zach when he was in Peterborough, and that was because, what was he, 4th overall or whatever?
4th overall, and, 3rd or 4th overall.
And he was seeing guys that were drafted way later than him, getting more minutes, getting points, getting whatever. And I was saying this to Seabass when he was in here the other day, going back to talking about trusting the process. The team that they're playing on, they have their top 6.
Yeah.
So if you think you're an offensive guy, you're not yet. And it could be 2 months into the season, one of the top 6 wingers or the top 6 centermen on the second line is just not delivering, and you get a chance. And then maybe you sneak into a top 6 early. Like, maybe that's the case. But you establish yourself in your role, and you do it properly, and you do it well, so that you get to stay in the lineup.
Yep.
That's the goal for the first few months, maybe even the first full year. You do your job, you do it properly, so that you stay in the lineup.
Yep.
Then you get to keep getting those puck touches, like you're saying with Charlie. I touch the puck a little bit more, getting a little bit more confident. I'm getting some more minutes because I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm out there in the moments where I'm supposed to be out there because, late in the game and you need a guy that's big and solid winger in the D zone.
Yeah.
Charlie could be that guy. Or for
100%.
Seabass, for Seabass, he can win a face-off in the D zone.
Yeah, he's going to do really well with that.
And these are the things that will keep you in the lineup. And so again, it's about the process. Don't think so much about what's happening today. You think about what's happening over time.
Yeah.
And for Charlie, if he sees a kid that like Charlie, let's say he wants to be more of a goal scorer, power forward, okay, maybe you don't get that this year. Does that mean that it's not working? Does that mean you're not developing? Does that mean you're not further along or not as far along as you should be or whatever? No, it doesn't mean any of that.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing as Seabass. It's the same thing as some of the guys that are going to play junior B. It's the same things that are with the guys that are going back to play midget. Like it's almost never what you think it's going to be.
That's right.
You know, and that's why it's really important to just keep chugging. The highs and lows are going to come, but you just keep going in the right direction. But accept your role and do it well, and that's what's going to get you more opportunity later, rather than fighting it. You know, if Seabass is a guy that's supposed to be good in his D zone and then get off the ice, but he keeps trying to carry the puck blue line to blue line and he's turning the puck over, though that's a reason to take you out of the lineup now. You're not doing what I asked you to do.
Yep.
You know, so those are the things that you have to keep in mind, because like you said, it's going to be, the mental game is going to start to come into it when you start to do the comparisons. And we've talked a lot about that in the past too. You start to do the comparisons and you got to compare to you and what you're supposed to be doing.
There was one play the other night. So my brother was at the game too. And it's different watching that level when your son's playing. Watch a lot of my students and played there and all that stuff, coach. And it's like when it's your son, it's different. Obviously. So he's being very, very physical. Very physical. And he's a young guy. And don't know if he processed it yet, but with running people,
you're gonna have to answer the bell,
you
man.
live by that sword, you die by it, right?
Yeah.
So the big boy on the other team was every shift after shift, it was them two. It was getting tiring for me.
Yeah.
My brother's like, "You think he's gonna have to answer the bell?" I hope he doesn't have to answer the bell. My brother's one tough kid.
Yeah.
And I said, it is what it is, man. This is what he's choosing to do. It's get it out of the system. It's fine. But he didn't back down at all. It was great. But there was a play in the second period, and it went D to D, and the D made a seam play to Charlie, and Charlie was moving. And I saw what was coming. I saw the big boy coming. And as this guy made the pass, he saw it and he made it, but he saw it a little bit too soon. So he zipped one. And if it was a little faster, it would have been as scary. But I was sitting there, go heads up, and my brother too go, oh no. So as his defenseman made the pass, he goes heads up, like he just started screaming heads up, like he was like shit, because it would have been ugly.
Yeah.
And then Charlie saw it and heard it at the same time, so he caught it and he just put the brakes on just in time to, like, even if he got hit, he would have absorbed it.
Yeah.
But if he would have taken 1.5, maybe 2 steps, I would have had to go get a shovel.
Yeah, concussion.
Or just, he would have got
pancaked,
hit hard.
Yeah.
And my boy's a pretty strong kid.
Yeah.
But that was, but that was the time and space.
Yeah.
Like, when you see a 6'5" draft pick that's got a presence on the ice and he's after you, that's a tough day.
What an
Tough day at the office.
Oh yeah, no kidding, man. Especially the kind of game that he's going to be playing, right?
Yeah.
That's good. Well, was there anything else from the camps, whether it's the games, the coaches, the players, the professionalism, any other things that stuck out to you that you want to touch on quick before we wrap up?
No, like the only thing I would say is that you do have a chance. Like, if you legit do have a chance. Charlie's coach said to them, like, I will be as fair as possible for as long as possible to as many as possible, is what he said to the kids. And he said that a few times. When he said it the first time, I'm like, that's like, he's a pretty straightforward person.
Mm-hmm.
And I said at that point, I'd like to believe that. But when you look at the rosters are kind of already set, and every team there's only a couple of spots. I'm like, well, that's, that hopefully guys will go in and work hard. But I think it was a very realistic to me going through this, how true it is. Like, you can that's what hockey is. It's taking jobs or losing jobs. And there was guys out there that took jobs, a couple jobs. And I would say that for anybody, whether you're a first round pick, not drafted or whatever, if you actually train and go there and do the work, like you said, do the work and go there with the mindset that you're there to take a job, sincerely, and do whatever it takes to do it, I think you have an opportunity. And then my second note would be to the people that have played there or signed or whatever, is that know that guy's coming, that there's a sea bass coming. That's the bottom line. There's a sea bass coming. There's a hungry kid that did all the work that you didn't hear about, that didn't get the glory yet. And I told that to Charlie. I said, Charlie, you got to understand when you go here, you've been getting a lot of love and press and all these things, which is great. I said, but there's someone at this camp that's looking at you and they're swearing and they're going, I want his job, or I want that, and they're hungry for it, and they're they're eating raw meat and nails for breakfast because they actually want that, and you have to make sure that Dalton said it all the time. It's really, really, really hard to get there, and then when you get there, it's actually harder to stay there, and when you go through the process again in real time, you realize how true that is. It's really true, because you're only as good as your last day. Your past doesn't matter. It might buy you a little bit of a leash, but it's actually not true. Someone is there to take your job, and if they're good enough, they're going to take it.
Yeah, so that's awesome, man. I think that's a good spot to leave off on. I'm looking forward to the games coming up now.
Yep.
Get me back into hockey.
Yeah,
Take some road trips to watch some of the guys.
Yeah.
So we'll leave it on that note.